is Inside the VAFA. Today we're with the General Manager of Footy and Umpiring. They've extended that title, by the way, since I was last sitting in HQ. Dale Christie is that man. The Women's Premier section, William Buck Premier Women's, has got a new team coming in.
It does. The William Buck Premier section does have 3 new teams coming in.
3?
Yep, from last year's structure.
Okay.
We've got, unfortunately, due to a rebuild, Collegians have withdrawn from Premier Women.
So they're playing Premier B?
Yeah, they will be. They'll be part of the regrading process now.
Okay.
With one side only entered.
Okay.
Last year they had...
Because you have to have 2 to be in Premier Women's?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, you've got to have a seniors and a reserves. Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
And the other one that's reduced down to one side is Coburg. So Coburg, unfortunately, have withdrawn their second side, so they've also had to come out. And then relegation-wise, Monash have dropped out.
Okay.
They're part of the regrading process as well, starting in Prem B. But they're 3 sides in from last year. We've got Old Geelong,
who won the Premier Grand Final.
Yep. So they've earned their way up there, and I think it's their first time ever in a Premier competition in VAFA. So
it will
Old
be,
Geelong,
yes.
Which is very exciting. Fitzroy, the juggernaut that is Fitzroy,
wow.
Are back in. So
that's who Old Geelong beat in the Grand Final last year by a kick.
So they've entered a 3rd women's side this year as well.
Wow,
so
okay.
Have they really?
They're getting big. Yeah, they're one of our biggest, in terms of team entries, they're one of our bigger clubs now.
That's great. Because they've got a really healthy feeder program too, don't they?
Fantastic. Yeah. And of course, David and everyone down there is doing a great job in just building. They had 3 grounds of pre-season training. That's how many players they had to have it over 3 grounds.
That's fantastic.
Big. Yeah, so big stuff down at Fitzroy. And then Williamstown with their, again, with a great feeder program coming through with all their community sport down there. So yeah, Williamstown's entering Premier Women's. Have had 2 great years in Premier B, almost unbeaten seasons, then unfortunately straight sets in both years. But yeah, they've certainly earned their way into Premier. So yeah, change to Premier Women's.
Very much so. 3 new teams. Old Geelong, Fitzroy promoted. Williamstown are the latest team to be included. Can you see any of them, Jace? Any of them getting near Old Scotch or St Kevin's?
It's going to be interesting, isn't it? And when we'll talk about Premier Women's, we'll go into a lot more detail in a future episode. But certainly Old Scotch and St Kevin's, who play in round 2. The fixture came out yesterday, the revised fixture. You can see it on vafa.com.au. They'll meet in round 2. Old Scotch will unfurl the flag in front of St Kevin's at Camberwell, and then they'll take each other on. So that's a game to watch early in the season. It's going to be very interesting to see, can the next tier of teams, which obviously was Kew and Caulfield, can they bridge that gap this year? The point system is going to start to have an impact. Actually, speaking of that, Dale, have you got I've spoken to a couple of coaches and we haven't quite got our head around the revised point system in women's footy this year.
Yep.
Can you just give us a basic overview of what that means and what it is?
Yeah, sure. So the player point system is obviously what drives our competitive balance model at VAFA. Obviously, without a salary cap, player points is the part that keeps teams competitive and balanced. We are now introducing that into women's footy. Because of the evolution of women's footy, now we've got a lot more players that have played or will play or are playing VFLW or AFLW. So we're now in that position where our stronger clubs, that's why it's only being introduced for women's seniors, Premier Seniors this year, because they've actually got now VFL and AFL players coming back into the system. So rather than having 1 or 2 sides full of AFL and VFL players, we're distributing the wealth by having a player points cap.
What's the number?
Yeah, so it's 49 to start with.
Okay.
Men's is currently 45.
Mm-hmm.
That had 3 years of revision to go down to where we landed at 45. So we've allowed clubs, sort of 3 years to get us back down to 45. So it'll be 49, 47, 45.
And how much is an AFL player worth?
They're 6.
They're 6. That's the top.
That's
6
the
points.
top.
And if you're a junior that's come through that club, you're a 1 point player.
You're 1 point player, yeah.
Yep.
Or the school, yeah. Which some obviously, some women's clubs do have the school feeder, which they're 1 point if they've been at the school for 3 years.
So we're expecting that's going to impact Old Scotch and St Kevin's in terms of breaking up the team they have now, or is it just going to prevent them bringing new players into their group?
Yeah, so they've all, what we will do is that we will offer and allocate a season of service deduction for players that have already played. So we'll start their process as we would any other player. The time they got transferred.
Oh, so it's retrospective?
Retrospective.
So if someone's been there, if they're an AFL player, but they've been there 4 years, so it comes back to 2 points.
1 point.
Yeah, great.
1 point is the lowest they can be, yeah.
It might be a naive question, and please, if people listening do want to know this, if you are from a St Kevin's and Old Scotch, not that they have a women's side, but St Bernard's all-boy program, but they've got a women's school. Is there a feeder school that their numbers are reduced from?
Yeah, so this is where we're sort of getting clubs to be a bit proactive. List management has always been a men's issue.
Yep.
What we're telling now to clubs is that, be a bit more proactive in your feeder for your women's program. Now that we do have player points, if you don't have a school, which a lot of our school clubs do, find yourself a women's junior program.
Yeah, fantastic.
Because this is where clubs are going to benefit. And then, which we can talk about later, we've got, under 19s coming in for that exact reason. We need clubs to start investing in their development.
Speaking of that, women's under 19s this year, exciting announcement. That VAFA's going to have that. Is VAFA the first community league anywhere to have a women's under 19 program?
Women's under 19, this is the first one that we know of in the country. So, we know that, and again, we look years in advance. Obviously, we're 3-5 years in advance. We know that players are coming to football earlier now. They're coming straight out of high school, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, and at the moment, they've got to go straight into senior footy. And a lot of them just aren't ready physically or even with skill base. So having an under 19s program, especially in VAFA, which, as we all know, we covered a massive landscape now geographically. This will allow the women to develop in an environment that actually gets them ready for senior footy. And then, of course, the benefit of that is that you get the girls in early, and it helps your player points. So we're really, we're really pushing that to our.
So how many women's under 19s teams are we starting out with?
Yeah, so we reckon we need at least 5 or 6 to get started. We've got 3 committed, and probably 3 or 4 that are waiting to see numbers.
And that's Old Scotch, Melbourne Uni, and Westbourne?
That's correct, yeah. So they're the ones with healthy 19s right now. Mm-hmm. Westbourne are doing some really good stuff out there with Westbourne under Chris
Grant's academy.
Yeah, so that's massive. So
spoke to Chris about that during the week, actually. Said he's had great interest. Even had a couple of girls from Darwin, Northern Territory, saying, can we come down to Melbourne and train with you guys in the academy and get that extra training? Because for girls who are maybe not quite good enough to be in the Coates League, or maybe they got dropped off a Coates League list and they're not quite at VFLW level yet, but they aspire to get there and they're close. Chris and the academy at Westbourne, the idea behind that is to just give you a little bit of extra training on top of what you might be getting at your local club to just help you fast track to make that step up, which is a wonderful initiative for footy out in the western suburbs, and certainly gives the VAFA a profile and a footprint in the west.
100%, and there's no obligation to play for Westbourne, obviously. It's the academy, but obviously their program out there is fantastic, and they're one of 2 women's teams in our west. So we've got obviously Williamstown and Westbourne.
Yeah, and then St Bernard, so it fills the gap in between
100%.
That big geographical space we have there.
Yep.
A question for you on that school feeder program that you raised a few minutes ago. Has any sort of feeder program for those all-boys schools popped up yet that we know of?
In girls' schools?
For those boys' schools programs, but maybe they've accessed a girls' school to feed their St Kevin's program, for instance, or Old Scotch.
Yeah. So for St Kevin's, for example, are a boys' school, but you're trying to get a girls' program going. How do you connect?
So they're linking at the moment with... So an example, De La Salle College have linked up with Corowa College, which is a local girls' school. Scotch, for
MLC,
example,
Scotch?
Scotch have got a link there, but they're also now looking at, local junior clubs that don't have a current link with anyone else. And those clubs, like a Scotch, for instance, that are getting on the front foot, are going to benefit in the long term because already they're developing relationships with local junior clubs.
What does the overall women's structure now look like then? We've got Premier Women's, Premier B Women's. How many divisions have we got?
Yep.
And then we've got a thirds, and then we've got under 19. So talk us through the entire women's landscape for 25.
Sure. So our women's program is one of our rapidly developing growth areas in the VAFA. So as it stands right now, we've got 81 teams in women's footy, which is obviously enormous.
How does that compare to previous seasons?
It's effectively, we started, I think it was 50-something in 2 years ago.
Yeah,
and now it's grown to
50% growth in a couple of years.
We're now looking at having up to Division 5 in women's.
Division 5?
Yeah, so it'll be Premier Women's, which is our showcase, which includes reserves. This year in Premier B, we've actually dropped the reserves program to actually find out who are the next 10 best clubs. And then once we find that out across our 7 other divisions, who are the next best 10, so that 2026 we can then have a reserves program in Premier B as well, which we can then replicate the men's program with relegation promotion. So yeah, Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, Division 4 and Division 5. And then with the addition of, as we've spoken about, under-19 women's for the first time and the reintroduction of our women's thirds. We've actually got 5 clubs with 3 teams in women's.
Kew, St Kevin's, West Brunswick, Fitzroy and Old Yarra. So that gives them somewhere to play their thirds team without having to just lose players.
Exactly right. And what we discovered last year, they were just part of the normal divisional football last year. And often they played against teams-only team. So to sort of, remove that, so we're going to have a separate thirds competition house, it helps the integrity, it helps our single club only playing against themselves.
Moving on to the men's, just structurally,
Sure.
What have we got? Premier men's, Premier B, C, 3 divisions of senior footy, and then what does the under-19 structure under that look like?
Yes, under-19s again the beauty of VAFA at the moment is that everything is growing. So under-19s this year, we've got under-19 Premier, which is, again, it's a fantastic competition. A lot of people are obviously growing out of that competition.
Am I hearing Twilight finals for under-19 Premier?
Twilight finals. So there's 2 big initiatives this year with under-19 footy. So we've got, outside of having 5 divisions, which is, again, a growth, we've got Twilight finals that we want to introduce. So we've got 350 Lux lights now at Elstonwick Park. And touch wood, the ground's in good condition come finals. So yeah, Friday night footy at Elstonwick Park for under-19 finals will be awesome. Yeah,
fantastic.
The other initiative with the 19s, which we can also touch on later, but on the back of last year's program on just how strong the under-19s were, the North versus South exhibition game, we're going to have a big V19s for the first time.
Let's talk Big V. Big V19s. Pulling on the Big V to play
For the first time.
First time.
In a long time.
In a long time. First time in a long time.
It is. They're
Since-
going to wear the proper jumper.
First time since COVID.
Going to wear the proper
Joey's
jumper.
still hooked up on this. Come on, Joey, let it go.
Go on. What's
Joey
the proper
played.
jumper?
Joey played a pulled on the Big V, but he was an alternate jumper. Something a bit unusual.
Yeah, no,
I'm a Big B representative, yes. It's on the honour
you
board
hadn't
at St
mentioned
Bernard's, if you hadn't caught up with that, Dale. We had to wear...
You played at St Bernard's.
I did play at St Bernard's. Name's on the honour board. Just go down there and check it out next time you're there for dealer.
It's just on the back of the toilet door there.
I'll show you. But we were given the Geelong-looking jumper with a circle in the middle with a V, because apparently it clashed with the opposition, which is just farcical.
Good thing is he's let it go, though.
So
That is great.
just make sure that this current crop of under-19s are wearing the navy blue and white.
So let's talk Big V. Big V weekend. Again, we're going to have a double bye in the middle of the season for the entire competition. The first weekend will be the
Europe.
Big V rep weekend, and then obviously the second weekend's for Tullamarine Flu for everyone to get over that.
Yes.
But it'll all kick off on the Thursday night because it is the 100th anniversary of the first ever Big V game against Adelaide at the MCG in 1925. 100-year anniversary. Big black tie centenary gala on the Thursday night. Save that date, Thursday, July the 10th. It's going to be the biggest function the VAFA's ever run. It's going to be absolutely enormous and fantastic, and that's leading into a blockbuster weekend of Big V games, which kicks off Saturday at Elstonwick Park. What do we got?
Yeah, so the Saturday we've got the double header. So we've got the Premier Men's and the Premier Women's playing against the Perth Footy League, which the boys had a loss last year.
Yeah, the girls got home by, what, a point?
Yeah, only just. So
Never lost the girls.
Yeah.
Never lost.
No,
So it'll be the girls first. What time roughly are we expecting that might kick off?
about 1 o'clock.
Right.
And then we'll go into about a 3:30, 3:45 start for
So the men's will be a twilight
Oh.
finish as well
Yeah.
under lights.
You want a
Yeah.
twilight game, do you?
It's a bit like 2 years ago.
We
when
had a twilight
with
game
no
here
lights.
2 years ago with no
Yeah.
lights.
No, that's right. So again, why wouldn't we use these facilities?
Spectacular.
And then, of course, the time difference into Perth is a good time for them
Perfect.
too, into
Yep.
lunchtime. So
So it'll be Big V women against Perth, Big V men versus Perth,
correct.
and then on the Sunday?
The Sunday, yeah. So this is a great little relationship we've got with the Bendigo Football and Netball League. So they came down here last year to play our Premier B to Div 3 men's last year in Big V. This year, our Premier B to Div 3 men's are travelling to Bendigo on Sunday, the July 13th, to play, obviously, the Bendigo Footy League. But the addition to that, the curtain raise will be the Big V wearing the proper jumper, navy with the white V. Under 19s, Big V under 19s against the Bendigo Footy League under 19s, which is amazing.
Fantastic. So last year we had the North versus South showcase. We played amongst ourselves. Now we're going to pick the very best of the best, put them all together into one team to go represent the VAFA up in Bendigo.
Yeah. So what? And I still say that North versus South, one of the best games of footy I've seen
Was
for a long
fantastic,
time.
wasn't
Like
it?
the ball didn't hit the ground.
Yep.
There was no stoppage. It was a fantastic game. But now we're going to see, the best of the best compete against another league. So fantastic opportunity.
Is there going to be any criteria around players who are eligible? Like, for example, I look at a Joey Campili last year,
So you're gonna
Paddy,
say
who
Joey
started
Pignataro then.
who started in the 19s, played the first half of the season, then ended up in the seniors. If you've got a player who starts in the 19s, plays a few games, but is already into the senior team by the time Big V's getting picked, is he still eligible? Have we worked through that?
No, 100%. So they don't need to be playing in the under-19 competition. They just need to be eligible for
Right.
under-19.
Purely an age-based criteria then.
Provided they don't get picked for our
Senior team.
other sides.
Yeah, that's right.
I can flag one issue there, I think, because Andreas Stefanakis is moving up to Premier Football. He played in the Under-19 showcase last year and dominated, but he would have just about been picked for the Big V, I think. So, gee, that's going to be a really talented team. I did remember watching that 19s game back and thought this was a higher stated game almost than the Big V versus Perth men's game over in Bassendean, where the poor Victorian players didn't know how to kick the burley footy for half the time.
It's going to be a fantastic weekend. And all the details and et cetera are going to be on vafa.com.au, so check it out. And as I say, save the date for the Thursday, July the 10th. Memorabilia, we're putting a call out as well to clubs for Big V memorabilia. We're going to try to find the oldest Big V
I can
jumper
give you mine if
around.
you want.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that'd be great. I'll talk to you about that later. But yeah, if you've got some great Big V memorabilia in the garage at home, or maybe at Grandpa's place upstairs in the attic or something, let's dig it out and see what we can find. I'm sure there's some incredible stuff out there, and we can celebrate the history, the wonderful, rich history of the Big V. And Dale, from a coaching perspective, where are we at? Because I also saw yesterday on the website advertising for coach applications, a chance to coach the Big V in the centenary season. What an honour and a privilege that'd be.
Absolutely. So Greg Hutchison has been a fantastic driver of rep footy over the last couple of years as head coach. With his other commitments, he's now, I think, having a more senior role at Brighton, Old Brighton. So unfortunately, there's probably a bit more of a conflict of interest there as well, but just in a time perspective. So Hutchie's let us know that he's unable to do it. So we're going out to market to see what talent we've got out there and who's willing to do it. So so
you can't be a current coach of a VAFA club. That's the one criteria.
That's the one criteria, that someone that's not involved in coaching. So director of coaching, which Hutchie was last year, is fine. But they just can't be a current coach. Obviously, someone that knows a lot about VAFA and the current group of players, because there obviously will be an expectation of player knowledge, obviously, because we're picking.
Part of the job is recruiting as well, right?
100%. It's almost it's picking the squad. So we often have clubs nominate players. The feedback from last year is that we're headhunting the squad. So we want to win.
Yep. And you think about coaches that are not coaching this year, but have had premiership success in recent times. Think about Peter Higginbotham at Elsternwick, has won back-to-back flags. He's not coaching at the moment. He's got a great knowledge of divisional footy. Aaron Bailey's coached Old Kerry to the Premiership. He's not coaching this year. He's taken on a GM of footy role. There's some really good footy minds out there that, one, are very good coaches, but two, know our competition intimately.
There's a couple I'd like to nominate. They might be a bit young, but there's a couple. Josh Freezer has to be somewhere in your coaching panel. I'd headhunt Josh before you make him apply. Tom Paul has done it for a couple of years, helping out Hutch. Bleeds for the Big V. Tommy Caven was another one. It's back in St Bernard's days. And Danny Byrne, who was like the first idol of St Bernard's. Just to headhunt those ones, Dale. There might be a couple at De La Salle. Maybe don't ring Brian Waldron. I know he likes to talk about the Big V, but I wouldn't ring Brian.
Notice you're not taking any notes there. You're not writing anything down?
I'll just say Brian Waldron. So I'll give him
I'd leave Brian out, I reckon. What about Paul Groves? Is he helping out the girls, or are we looking for a women's coach?
So we're applying. We've asked for applications for our senior men, our Premier men, and then our Premier B to Div 3 side. So they're the two sides we're asking for applications.
Okay.
In our women's program, Paul Groves again is doing the job again. So he's been reappointed, which is fantastic. Paul, as we know, has got a fantastic pedigree. We know his roles in the AFL and
AFLW Premiership coach.
100%. So he's up and about. He's already put a message in the WhatsApp group
from
last year, so he's ready to go. And our under-19 Big V is being coached from last year's two coaches. So we've actually got
the two Pauls.
The two Pauls.
They did a great job last year getting this thing up from scratch. Their passion, their energy,
amazing.
Their enthusiasm, they really rallied the troops. So good on them. I'm glad that they get the opportunity to coach the Big V.
Yeah, so it's north and south, a bit of a blend. So we've got Paul Gilmore, who's obviously from St Bernard's. and Paul
Star.
Carrigan from Hampton Rovers. So they're the co-coaches of our first ever since COVID under-19s team.
That's fantastic. So clubs will be able to nominate players, plus we'll have headhunting, we'll have scouts out there looking at form in the early
100%,
weeks.
Yep. So we'll be sending out information on how clubs can nominate players for the under-19s and the Big V Prem B to Div 3 sides. But yeah, certainly in the higher grades, I think Paul and the whoever the coach is for the men will be headhunting.
Fantastic.
Which will be exciting.
Before we let you go, overall picture of the VAFA in terms of
Yep.
total teams, etc. for the year. What are we expecting and how does that compare to last year?
Yeah, well, again, it's growth. So we had 297 teams last year. Currently, we're looking at about 314 teams.
Wow.
Um,
Does that make it the largest senior comp in Australia?
well, we say it is.
So it is then.
Well, it is if we say it so. Yeah, we know Perth's also quite big. But yeah, look, it's huge, and like I said, it's getting bigger. We've got 34 sections. It looks like having this year, so it'll be 34 separate grand finals, which is obviously lots of big, 34 leading goal kickers,
Ton watch.
34 best.
Got to get a couple of tons
best
out of this
fairest.
lot.
66 clubs. So with the club land, so we obviously have lost Bulleen Templestowe, have gone to the AFL, and unfortunately at the moment it looks like Mentone may not get up their third side after a flag. But we're looking to potentially gain another club, which is currently in the process at the moment. But yeah, 66 clubs at the moment.
Can you speak of the club that's potentially in train?
Yeah, we can. So Port Chargers Women's
Port Melbourne
Football Club
Chargers
is what they're called, and they are they're going to be an extension of the Port Colts Junior Football Club in the women's space. So they've applied, and that's currently with the AFL Victoria at the moment. So we've accepted their application. It just needs to go through the process now, but they'll have 2 women's sides entering the competition in 2025.
Right, so they'll have good numbers right off the bat to begin with.
Yeah, they will. They're ready to go. So big committee and a formal link already with the Port Colts Junior Footy Club. So no allegiance to the senior Port Colts side, the men's side, but it's an extension of the junior football club.
So where do they start from a grading perspective then?
Yeah,
coming
so they'll
in as
start
new?
regrading
Yeah.
and around about in that Division 1.
Yep, start
level.
them there and see how they go.
Yeah. They've got a lot of players from the Collegians program.
Last one from me, Dale.
Sure.
Fixturing.
Yep.
I know people think it's silly because you've got 10 teams in when it comes to the men's comps.
We do.
So they play each other twice.
Yep.
But it is important to note that we talk about the fixture every single week
Why?
when you get them. Because you can get them early and they can build into a season, or you can get them late when they're starting to hum. I think you've given De La Salle a very healthy draw in William Buck Premier Men's.
Well,
Just from what I can glean, Dale.
what do you mean at the brand new facilities at Turek Park round 1?
No, not the old Xavier. It's De La Salle.
Well, that's who they're playing.
Versus De La.
Zab in round 1.
Well, no. You've given them a very comfortable draw, Dale.
Just quickly.
It's a fixture.
I was about to say, just very quickly, before we let you go, please do explain how the fixture comes together, because it isn't a
Mate,
case
it's
of sitting there
impossible.
with a
I don't know how
whiteboard.
you do
You
it, to
guys
be
don't do
honest.
it manually.
No,
it's
no,
done
no.
through a software program.
Well, that's how it spits out. We need to manually enter rules and ground availabilities.
And when you say rules, you say like club requests. So we've got a special function in round 1, for
Anzac
example.
round.
Old Zabs, we're redeveloping
Yep.
Turek Park, having a big grand opening. So can we please have a home game in round 1? That gets put in as a rule.
100%. But also then around when grounds are or aren't available, e.g. Grand Prix this year is knocked out Albert Park to about round 8.
Yep.
Yeah, Ajax copped that. I mentioned that a bit earlier on.
Oh, well, there's 5 clubs there.
Yep. Powerhouse,
which are
South
all
Melbourne districts.
struggling. Yeah, then we've got redevelopments happening at Glen Ira. I think there's redevelopments everywhere. So ground access, and that's when we talk about fixturing, and we've mentioned that we're not growing our venues. So if anything, our venues are shrinking, but our numbers and teams are expanding. So it's really tough to get fixturing right.
And that's a common thing across, I was in an AFL
That
presentation
is.
last week. The AFL say that nationally they need to find 100 new ovals every year to keep up with growth across the country.
Yeah.
100 new
Yeah.
ones every year.
We're not getting that. So when you look at our men's program fixturing, we've got 60 men's teams, 81 women's teams, 48 under-19s teams, and 61 third sides, each with their own requests. 66 clubs, like they've all got their own facilities of access. Some have lights, some don't have lights.
Some have got seconds teams, some have got under-19s teams, some have got women's teams, some don't.
Yeah, some clubs are purely a thirds club, like Masala, just thirds, two sides. Some clubs just one women's side, like MCC, for instance.
You've got Paran and Old Zavs sharing a ground, so they can't have home games on the same day. You've got to split those up. There's lots and lots of factors that go into it.
Well, even out here at Elswick Park, like OMs very seldom get to train out here because the grounds is a premium. So, look, it is hard work, but we clubs also have until 28th of February to get their team entries in. So once we get them all in, we can start looking at the structure of what it looks like, and then the fixtures go out, which we're, again, to your point, Joey, it's not an easy job, and we're not going to please 66 clubs with 312 teams, but we'll do our very best.
No, I think you're doing a very good job, and you have for a number of years. When it comes to footy fixturing, it is impossible to please everyone, but I just reckon Dealer, a little bit soft. So Bernard's got the toughest draw when I crunch the numbers. vafa.com.au is where you go to read up about the changes to the William Buck Premier women's sides. The women's under-19s is on there. The Twilight Final, stay tuned for that, and the Big V 100th anniversary. More information unveiled as we lead up to July 10. Dale, thanks for coming in.
Might be a regular segment inside the footy department. I think there's right in with your questions. What do you want to know? You bring in with your complaints.
He got through the first one okay, played within the V, but wait till we start to open up the shoulders on you, Dale.
Thanks, DC.
Great stuff. Thanks, guys.